Hi, this is James Eade of the Eade Foundation, and you can call me Jim. The Eade Foundation is dedicated to building communities through chess. Now, if you're part of a community, you're never alone. Now, if you can get internet access, you can join the chess community. But if you can't have internet access or you don't have it, you can build a community wherever you are. And the Eade Foundation can help you do that. Now, today's show is the Chess Files. The answers are out there. And I have a question that we want to solve today. It's what's the problem with chess puzzles? Now, I don't have the answers to that, but I'm going to bring on a guest right now, Cyrus.
How are you, Jim?
Hi.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
me.
for joining us. I appreciate it. And you're more than welcome as my guest because the question is chess puzzles. Like, how do you compose them? How do you find them? How do you select them? And you've been just amazing at finding them and sharing them with the chess community. So maybe you can help me answer this.
I don't even find them. It's because I started that a Facebook group in late 2019 with GM Max Illingworth called Chess and Chess Compositions and Studies Endgame. I forgot the name of my group. This is bad.
it's the pandemic. It's done it to us all. Yeah.
This is bad. Chess Endgame Studies and Compositions, and people post there constantly, and I was stunned. Like of the people that joined the group, like Shirov is there, Nigel Short is there, and what I realized was a lot of GMs do endgame studies and compose problems. I did not know that.
I didn't either.
And so I get a lot of the problems and studies for my book, the Rewire Your Chess Brain book, from there. But also there's the Endgame Study database, the Vanderhagen Endgame Study database, which has I don't know what it is, but it's probably 100,000 different studies throughout history.
Wow.
So you could just I can call up. I want a rook and pawn ending. I want a king and pawn ending. A study from a king and pawn ending. And then there's
I'm writing it down.
It's called the Vander. Now I don't know how to spell it, but I can get you the name later. But
no, sorry.
He's a I think he's a mathematician, and he spent the last 20 years compiling zillions and zillions of endgame studies. It's just absolutely amazing. Like someone will just post the study unattributed, here, white to play and win, and I can't put that in the book if it's I don't know the composer, I don't know the date, I don't know where it was published.
Could be plagiarized, yes.
Yeah, I just put that in I take the position, put it in the endgame database, and 9 out of 10 times it'll pop up. The only time it doesn't pop up is if it's a partial study that's posted, where it doesn't recognize 6 moves into the study. It will only recognize move 1 in the study.
I see. And what is the value of these studies?
It's incredible. For my whole life, I was living in a delusion where I always thought not so much endgame studies, but I thought composed mating problems were really stupid. Okay, I thought they were and I always called them puzzles. Okay, which is a huge no-no among composers. They they look at it like oh my god, you do not say that word among composers. Like an endgame study, there's a difference between an endgame study, which is white to play and win or white to play and draw, and composed mating problems, which is white to play and mate in 2, 3, 4. For instance, if it's a mate in 2 problem, doesn't matter if you find 20 mates in 3, you failed that problem. You need that 1 mate in 2. And I always thought the mating problems were completely artificial. I just thought they have no relevance to tournament chess. So I retired. I had a heart attack at the board in a tournament in 2016. And I was told, you better stop playing because you have the heart attack when the clock gets, you get down to 1 second and you're living off your 5-second increment and your heart's, pounding in your
Racing.
chest.
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
exactly when you get the heart attack, right?
Right.
So I was told not to play, um, but I did anyway till 2019, and then I would get like chest pain every time I got into time trouble, which is like every single game, by the way. So
Uh-huh.
I,
It's like
you know,
Russian roulette. Yeah.
yeah, it is Russian roulette, and I thought, I love playing, and like I didn't quit because my rating dropped so much. I mean, my rating when I quit in 2019 was 2492, and my peak was 2596. Now it's probably a bigger drop than that, because the 2598 was 1994. So with rating inflation, it would be probably today's 2640 or something, in that
Right.
range.
Right.
So it
That's
did drop
realistic.
about 150 points from my prime to my dotage. It
Yeah.
dropped like quite a bit, but still 2492. You could still win tournaments, right?
Yeah.
You're not hanging your queen every move. And I love to play, but the body just won't let me. It
Yeah.
banned it. My
Yeah.
body, cardiologist, and wife. Those three.
Yeah. Not in that order either.
Yeah, well, number one, the most scared is wife. Okay, that's the
Right.
number one.
Always. You mentioned her last, but
Cardiology
you
is
first.
number two fear, and actual having the heart attack is the third fear. So
Yes. Yes. Well, let me back up a little bit, because this is a fascinating subject to me, and I want to talk about at length. But I've violated the premium rule of interviews, which is, Cyrus, where were you born, and
oh, I was
where do you
born in
live now?
Mumbai. I was
Bamba.
born in
Oh.
Mumbai, yeah, in 1960, and we moved to Canada, to Montreal, when I was 5.
Hmm.
And we lived there till 1978, until I was 18. And I've been living in the States since 1978.
Okay.
So I
And
have here's biographical information: 2 dogs, one wife, and that's
uh-huh.
it.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah. And by in the United States now, I think of you as San Diego.
I live in San
Yeah.
Diego. Yeah,
Because I know
it's
that you were, at least at one time, this Southern California champion, the state champion,
yeah. I've won it 6 times.
6 times.
I haven't played very often. I didn't play.
Right.
I skipped many years. I think I would have won it more had I played every year. But I think I played about maybe about 10 or 12 times, and I won 6.
Right. That's a pretty good
So
batting average. That gets you on
it's
the
a good
All-Star
batting
team. Yeah. And you've also won the National Open, American
average.
Open,
Yeah,
really
that was
quality tournaments, right?
87 was National Open, and American Open was 98. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So we're not talking about the club championship or anything like that. We're talking about some major league tournaments, and you won them. So I think your established chess credentials as a player are undisputed. However, how do you know if you're a good composer?
Well, I found out I'm an awful composer. I've been encouraged. One of the admins in the group is Stephen Dowd. He's a retired
Yeah.
academic,
Hmm.
and I think he is the top uh, uh, problem composer, like Mate 2, Mate 3, not endgame study, but problem composer in America.
Yeah.
He's won more composition prizes than any other American composer, and so it's like I have this opportunity of a lifetime. I have this, grandmaster of composition, basically,
Right.
telling me, I'm going to give you free lessons. And uh, then you discover to your horror that like your top rating is going to be 800, and you'll never get better than 800. My compositions are like baby compositions. Like when I look at some of the composers in the group, like they look at a position and they compose in real time, and they go, "Oh, just put the knight there and the bishop there." What? How did you
Yeah.
see that?
Right.
Like,
Right.
I don't have that kind of mind. It doesn't work that way.
You must be
But
working backwards, like, reverse
yeah,
engineering.
retrograde. Yeah, it's retrograde. I
Yeah.
just I don't get it. I created one um, decent, like, low level, decent uh, endgame study. And then I found that it was anticipated, meaning someone had the same idea, not the exact same position, but same idea, like in 1927.
Well,
And
there you go.
you compose studies with like, let's say 6 pieces and fewer,
Hmm.
you have only about 1 out of 10 chance of having an original. Uh, if it's
Right,
that few number of pieces, someone has had your idea before, because there are
right.
100,000 in the database, right? So,
Yeah.
but if you the larger, I mean, the greater the number of pieces on the board, the greater your chance that it's an original. If you have like 20
Yeah.
pieces on
Oh,
the board,
that makes
it's
sense.
probably
Yeah.
going to be an original. But
Well,
you can have
Cyrus,
the same idea, but like,
yeah.
what happened was, we actually, like, the other study was much better than mine. Okay, and like, after about like 5 moves, we reached my position of my start of the study, and
Right.
so and then it was identical, and I went, no, the only thing I ever was proud of is anticipating.
Well, that's welcome to the composition world. But
Right.
I know Steve as an online friend, but it was through you that I learned what a great composer he was. I had a friend who's since passed away, Bob Berger. I'm sure Steve
Mhm,
knows who he was because he was
mhm.
also a grandmaster of compositions, and he tried to teach me. So you're not alone in that, because I was just
Right,
like,
right.
you
Well,
know,
Steven is not a grandmaster, but he should be. He
mhm.
clearly is GM strength. I don't know why FIDE has over. It's kind of arbitrary, Like, I bless you. Nope, sorry, I cast you down. I don't. Chess composition is not the same thing as earning a GM or IM title, where you just win your games, and
Yes, it's a
it's more like
factual. Yeah.
figure skating, where one judge gives you, this is crap, and you get a 6, and the other judge gives you a 10, right? So it's, but to my, totally unbiased mind,
Yeah, of
he's
course.
top. No,
Yeah.
you always like favor your friends, okay? But to my unbiased mind, he's I think he's the top problem study composer. I've seen a lot of people posting in America. I'm saying I've seen a lot of people posting, and he just beats the living daylights out of them. Okay, like, I'll give you an example. I'm writing a book right now for Everyman called Endgame Tactics Move by Move. Okay. And I asked Stephen, hey, I'd like to publish some of your studies, but I mean, your problems. I need mates and two suitable for the, you know, club
Every
level
man.
player around 1500. So don't make some thing that a GM will fail. Okay. Like, you make it where a club level player can actually solve it. And I said, just whenever you can, send me a few. And like, the next day, he sent me 8, all perfect for the book. It's like, what? You composed 8 different problems in 24 hours?
Yeah,
I mean, and they're all really good. I mean,
he was probably
there's not
eating
one
while he
that,
was doing it,
no,
or
no, actually, he's on
watching
the
television, or
exercise. No, he's actually literally on his exercise cycle. He sort of just
yeah,
sort of dreams his
exactly.
problem. I mean, he creates all his problems on his exercise cycle. So
That's brilliant. You
anyway,
mentioned
I'm a big
books.
fan. I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
his.
Okay. Well, two thumbs up to Steve. You mentioned books, and I don't know if you know that I'm a well-known author. I mean, I've written several books on chess. Have you written more than several?
Uh, I'm on my 51st and 52nd right now. Like, so,
Boom! That's the
yeah,
sound was my head exploding. 50 books plus.
probably sold less than your one Chess for Dummies put together. But still.
Nevertheless, the productivity, and the quality of your books, as I said earlier, I own at least one of them, and I used it to prepare my repertoire of the London system, which is now useless. But the just writing that often that well is something I just have to tip my hat to you. You're
Oh,
just
thank
a
you. I appreciate it.
tremendous. And it's a tremendous contribution to the chess community.
Yeah, it's more like an obsession than anything. I was a writer actually when I was young. I mean, when in my 20s, I had a syndicated column, chess column, in about 100 newspapers. But then, of
Good
course,
for you.
newspapers collapsed. Right? I mean,
Right.
when the internet came, all newspapers
Oh yeah.
collapsed,
And
and
chess
then,
columns were
you
the
know,
first to go, one of the first to go. Yeah.
yeah, well, they wanted me, but they wanted to cut my pay, and I said, that would. I first said yes, and then it just kept bugging me and bugging me. I said, no, no, I need full pay. I'm not taking a pay cut. So it
Yeah.
got basically I fired myself is what I did. I mean, I
Yeah. But
understood they were in deep trouble. I remember the San Diego Union was there and the San Diego Tribune was there, and in around early 90s they merged because they were so desperate
yeah.
that they merged,
Right.
and then they got rid of about half the people, and
Yeah.
and just merged the two papers. So but print media is just like on life support now. I mean, it's
Yes.
just hanging on because of the internet, right? Like nobody reads anything in print anymore is the
Right.
problem.
Yeah. I saw this little cartoon where a guy had a little book stand selling newspapers, and the headline was "Is print dead?"
Right? It pretty
but
much is. It's like if you're, in the like you're in the horse and buggy business, and then all of a sudden taxis come. You're dead. You gotta switch. It's just
yeah,
that's it.
if you're selling buggy whips, you're
Yeah.
not going to make it.
The
But
one,
that
the
brings
one
me
thing
to
I
the online
hate. Go ahead.
online
Go ahead.
chess now. Online chess is really, since the pandemic and
Mhm.
the
It's
shut
exploded.
in life experience, online chess has been a gift to the chess community because we can still play chess, still watch chess, and unlike when you and I were growing up and playing, you could see games in real time now, taking
Right.
wherever they're
Right.
taking
It's
place.
incredible. When
So
I was a
it is.
kid, I was starved for chess. I was
Me
starved for
too.
chess books, chess knowledge, watching top players. Now it's like an overload. Like it's like I have too many books, and it's
Yep.
like too many variations and like databases, and you can't possibly fit that stuff in your head. But it
Right.
is incredible to watch someone like Carlsen play Blitz or Bullet live. I mean,
Yeah.
you're just like you're
Nakamura.
staggered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah.
Nakamura, you're just staggered. I used to play Nakamura a lot on ICC in the old days back in the 90s when he
Right.
was a 13-year-old IM.
Uh-huh.
But he's a wee bit better than me now. you know,
Well, his
he's won
stepfather,
a million
Sunil,
in a row.
yeah, Sunil Weramantri was his stepfather told me one day that he didn't use books when he was learning how to play chess and becoming so
Right.
good at such a young age. He was just
Database.
online databases. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
it's a completely different experience growing up now
Right.
uh,
Right.
than it was when you and I were growing up.
Well, they're
And
they're genetically engineered soldiers now. These prodigies are like, they're kids I teach that are like 12. One of my students made master at 11. Well,
right.
I made master when I was like 18 or 19. It took me 19 years. And in those days, that was normal. You know,
Yeah.
nobody was a master at 12 except like Bobby Fischer or someone like that.
Mhm.
Right. And
Yeah.
now
When he made
with databases, coaching, incredibly powerful engines, and also just the influx of books, which we didn't have in those days. Now you
yeah.
can, I want a book on Rook against minor pieces. Oh, there it is. I'll order it. We couldn't do that when we were young. We just took
No.
what we got, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Irving, Chernev, Reinfeld, whatever we got, we took.
Yep.
I like Bodvinik, Smyslov, whatever. But you didn't have a choice. It's just there were
Yeah.
only so many books, right?
Yeah. And
Now
Edward
it's
Lasker was, one of those guys who taught me to love the game, and
me
my
too. That was
system
my
taught me
favorite
to.
book.
Yeah.
That's it. The chess secrets I learned from the masters was my
Yes.
favorite book.
Yes. That was
I got busted
awesome. That was
so many
such a great.
times reading that book in high school, like where I was,
Yeah.
like surreptitiously reading it in math class with my math book blocking, but the teacher would. What they would do is they'd take away the book and I had to get it after school where I would miss the bus. And that was my punishment, where I had to wait like an hour and a half for the late bus, the
Right.
detention bus.
Right.
So,
Yeah, the short bus.
right.
But I was not that I know that, but the question I don't want us to sound like a couple of old guys jealous that these young kids have more than what we had, but I do want us to understand what is happening in the chess world now. And from the distance that I have as a player who started in 1972 for obvious reasons, we just lacked those resources. We had to drive for hours to find a tournament where there were decent players to play against.
Exactly.
So people are getting the experience at age 12 that I got by the time I was 30.
Exactly.
And yeah,
Everything's
so
accelerated. It's all
everything.
accelerated. But it's genetic, it's gene splicing is what it is. It's because these kids are not like us. I mean, their brains have been just wired from chess from incredibly young ages. Like, they're already, some of them 7 years old, and they're like 1600. Like I was like, I was like 14 or something when I was 1600. They were
Yeah, me
they,
too.
they
15.
double your speed. They
Yeah.
basically double your speed, and but we were poets, and now they're robots. There's a difference. I mean, the robot is more efficient, but the poet has a deeper appreciation. I think, like, it's just what you said about Nakamura. Like, I think we appreciate Capablanca's games, but he's not going to go over Capablanca's games or anyone in the past. He doesn't think it's relevant, and I think most top players feel that way. But except for Carlsen, by the way, he studies the great players. I find that the people that don't study the greats, they're just lacking something. I don't know what that something is, but they lack like an aesthetic feel for chess. I wrote a book
There's
on it.
something to that.
Yeah, I wrote a book on it for Noon Chess called "In the Zone: The Greatest Winning Streaks in Chess History." It actually won what is it? The Chess Journalists Association Instructive Book of
CTA.
2020.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
which I found very satisfying, because I got a bad review by this one reviewer, and like 3 days later, oh, book of the year. So it makes the reviewer look like an idiot.
Life
Love
rarely works out that well.
it when that happens. Anyway,
That's
but
great.
I start with Morphy and I end with Carlsen, and just
Mm-hmm.
go through like their hottest streak or hottest tournament or match or whatever. Um,
Right. When they were on fire, when they were in
when they
the
were
zone. Yeah.
completely unstoppable, like totally
Right.
unstoppable. I mean, like Caruana at St. Louis, I was going to say 1914, 2014.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wins the first seven in a row. Oh, I beat
Yeah.
Carlsen with black. What? Like,
Yeah.
he's
And,
so
and
far ahead.
if you've ever played any sport or done any type of competition, you know that feeling.
You know that feeling. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that confidence where you just absolutely know you're going to win that game somehow,
Mhm.
and it's irrational, but usually when you feel that way, it happens.
It happens. Yeah. And there are some people that can get in the zone regularly, and there's some people like myself who have experienced it but can't get it back.
Well,
It's
it's
like,
very difficult. It's a very difficult
yeah,
mind state. I don't think it's
yeah.
something you can consciously will yourself to do.
Right.
I mean, I think maybe like
Or maybe,
Carlsen has it.
yeah,
It's a type
maybe there's
of
this
supreme
willpower that's
confidence.
part of it. Right.
It's a supreme confidence in your ability, and you feel like you're playing at your very best.
Yeah. And
So,
there's not
like,
a
when
shred
Carlsen
of
is like
doubt.
that,
There's no doubt
right?
in your mind. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
when
not held
Carlsen is
back.
like that, he's unstoppable, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's no player in the world that can stop him when he's hot. He's in a little bit of a slump right now, which bums me out a little, because I just wrote a book on him. Like,
That's more like usually it works out for me. It's
Magnus Carlsen never loses a
timing.
game. Book comes out, bam, bam, loses 2 games. Like, what? Come on.
But we're
He
talking
did it
about studying
deliberately.
the old masters. Fisher used to do that. Fischer would trot out old Stanisian variations and stuff like
Right,
that.
right.
So, he
Yeah.
did appreciate the old
Oh,
masters.
because it was a different era. In
That's
those
true
days,
too.
everybody appreciated the greats of the past.
I think you're
It,
making a great point.
it
Yes.
drives me nuts when, like, I ask my student, like, have you ever studied? I'm showing a Smyslov endgame study. Have you ever studied Smyslov's games? Was he a good player? Does he play at the San Diego Chess Club?
Yeah.
Like,
I gotta tell you this one story. It sums up exactly what you're talking about. Tal was late to one of the Pan Pacific tournaments, and he had to make up a couple of games. So they made up one of the games. It was Tal versus Patrick Wolf, who was very young at the time. And it was held at the Mechanics Institute Chess Club, famous chess club. And so they're playing the game, and one of the mechanics members came up to me and said, "Which one's Tal?" Now here's Tal, this old bald guy smoking a cigarette, and there's young Patrick Wolf. Which one's Tal?
Right. Yeah, it just drives me batty when an 8-year-old, like, never heard of Capablanca. Like, what?
Yeah.
You're a chess player? You've never heard of him? Haven't you watched Queen's Gambit?
They probably watched that, yes, but they don't know their history. But that's like you said, when we were growing up, that's what we had. So we did appreciate the masters.
Right.
And it did instill in us a love for the game that sometimes I'm not sure, I can't tell if a player has it, even though they're good.
That's what it is. I honestly believe the old codgers like Jim Eade and Cyrus Lakdawala love chess more than young prodigies today. That's what it gives you, the love of the game, by studying the history and understanding it.
There's no question about that.
Their top priority is to win. They just want to win. Like,
just win, baby.
They're completely zoned in on winning. They don't. I don't think they care about chess beauty as much. I mean, of course they like it, but it's a much lower concern. It's a much lower concern for them.
Yeah, and players like yourself and myself sometimes would try to create a beautiful combination when just winning might have been the better plan.
I was really poor. Okay, I mean, I before the books, I was always broke. I mean, I married a secretary, and I'm a chess player, and not like a world class one. I mean, I got to maybe weak grandmaster strength in my prime, and I had to settle for strong IM. Okay, but not a chess god or something. A chess god in San Diego, yes, I win everything in San Diego, but outside, no. But yeah, I was so broke at that time. I couldn't go for titles, so I became an IM at age 42. I officially became an IM on my 42nd.
I was so proud of you. I lived vicariously through you for doing that.
I didn't even try for an IM norm until I was 40.
Well, it wasn't available to us unless we traveled or lived in New York City.
You had to go to Europe in the old days, and there was just no way. We bought a house in 1987, and we were just barely making the payments. Barely making the payments, and so there was no way I could not teach for a month plus spend a fortune in Europe. So it was just not an option. I couldn't afford to go to New York to play in a GM tournament. I mean, it had to be local. I got my norms, 2 norms in San Francisco and 1 in Los Angeles. Not very expensive compared to other people getting their title. So.
Well, it's the same with me and many others like you and me that were sweating rent at the time. You were worried about making your rent, and so you just couldn't afford to do these things. And
you couldn't afford to play for beauty too. I became like completely like a ruthless.
You're right.
I would see a combination and not play it because there's a 1 out of 100 chance that I
You
might be
might have overlooked
miscalculating.
something. Yeah,
So
yeah,
take
right,
I'll be a rook up in an ending, and then I'll win 1 billion out of 1 billion. I
right,
couldn't take that 1 out of 100 chance, even if it's a 4 move combination. I absolutely see it, but I'm
right.
still worried about hallucination. And this way just wins longer, but it's
And they do
100%.
happen.
Fearful I
Hallucinations
was.
do happen. Yes.
But that's
And
how fearful I was of not winning the tournament. I mean,
yeah, yeah, I understand. And I do want to, like, I think your love for things like your friend Steve produces, you can appreciate
mhm,
the beauty still,
right,
but you
right.
couldn't do that while you're playing a tournament game. You had to win.
Yeah, I love I love being retired. I can't believe I didn't retire from tournament play ages ago. I absolutely love it. Now chess is for the of it. I mean, I love
Yeah,
every day. I go to Michael Passman's site, Chess PM, on
yeah.
Facebook. He's an incredibly gifted composer. He's been composing like 2 years, and he's got a slew of first places and prizes in competitions. He's an over the board IM, but I mean he's like a world class GM in composition.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's just world class composers there, and on the my own group, Chess Endgame Studies, mine and
yeah,
Max's group.
right.
But it's just every day. I've seen a lot of chess. I started playing chess when I was 8. I'm 60. Okay. I've seen a lot of chess, but every day now I see patterns I have never seen before. Like you just go, whoa, what? Where did that come from? I mean, you've
Yes,
seen the patterns, but never in so
yep,
dazzling light. Okay,
right.
and I love that.
And
I
the
love the
aesthetic
fact
quality, we can only call it beautiful. It's just a beautiful thing to see. It's
what I understood,
it's hard to describe.
what I realized was these things have incredible practical value. Um,
That's true
I
too.
noticed when I started that group, I started solving every day, and I noticed that my blitz and bullet ratings like rose. And nobody starts getting better at age 59, right? I mean, like, what's going on? And then I realized, oh, no, it's the endgame studies and the what I finally realized was the two um, the 1-2 punch of getting better is endgame studies and composed mates in two. Mates in two are like the Goldilocks zone. It's just absolutely perfect. There's something about them where they're not like online puzzles that you do uh, on any internet server, chess server. They're very different, and they make you think out of the box all the time. But I had some, like, I had a student named Jonathan Fry, okay, and he's 55, okay, and for 20 years his rating it cycled between 1290 and 1360. 1290 was like he was in a slump. 1360 is like he's riding the high. Okay, I put him on endgame studies and mates in two. Now, of course, he's not solved these endgame studies. I can solve only like a out of five of
Fraction.
the
Yeah,
complicated
right.
ones. Um, but there's a process. You try, for a few minutes, and when you don't see any idea at all, like you don't know where to go, look up the answer. That's it. And then next, just try, look up the answer. Mates in two, anyone can do. I've got a student like that's like 1100, and he can solve any mate in two. It might take him an hour, but he always solves it through just brute force.
Trial and
You
error. Yeah.
every single try. But but I found that these things are incredibly valuable. Jonathan jumped 200 rating points. He was on the cusp of 1600. Like 1360 was his absolute peak for 20 years.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for the pandemic, he would be over 1600. He was 1576, and then the pandemic hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have another student, a kid. He was stuck for like about 2 years. Boom, 200-point jump. Instantly from. I mean, he gained 200 points in 3 weeks during the pandemic. Okay, like how like they had this little window of like there was one tournament in Orange County. He gained 80 points. Another one in San Diego, 80 points. Another one, I mean, I'm sorry, the next one in San Diego, 40 points, and the next one in San Diego, 80. And then they shut them down again because the COVID got bad in California. But
Right.
in 3 tournaments, he went up 200 points.
Right.
And there's a bunch of students I have. Their ratings are, of course, jammed because of the pandemic, but I'm telling you, they're
A
200
lot
points
stronger.
stronger.
Right.
They're way stronger than before these. But they have to do them. They have to do them like religiously every
Yes.
day. You do
Put in the work. You got to put in the work.
And endgame studies, and they
So
serve
agree.
different functions. Endgame studies helps you incredibly with planning because you
Yes.
must find the theme first, and both help with calculation, but especially endgame studies. And the mating problems are just pure math geometry. Just keep adding new mating geometries into
Yes.
your head, and just
That's it.
until your
Precisely
internal
stated.
database rises. But I'm telling you, my goal in life now is to tell people this is the way to get better. If you want to get better, do endgame studies and compose mates in two, especially. Okay. And they're very hard to do because it's very hard to do something. Let's say you're like a 1700. Okay. And you try a Troitsky endgame study. Forget it. Okay. Forget it. You're just not going to solve it. Okay. Unless it's the easiest study
Right.
he ever made when he was drunk, you're not going to
Right.
solve it. Okay.
Right.
And just, any composer, Kubel, anyone, any top one of the great composers, a 1700, you'd be lucky to get 1 out of 15. Okay, I mean that would be like a
That could
miracle
be
if you got
discouraging. That could be
one.
discouraging. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's discouraging because you can never solve them. So
Right.
your natural inclination is, well, why am I doing this? But
Right.
40 years ago, I was at a tournament in Los Angeles, and it was the only time I ever met Bill Lombardi. And I finished a game with FM Mark Duckworth, and he joined in the analysis. And we were just chatting, and we were talking about how we study. And he says, "Oh, I don't study games. Like, rarely does he go over game collections or." And I went, "What? Well, how do you study?" He said, "I just have a bunch of books on endgame studies and mating problems, and I try, and then I look up the answer, and I'm going, what?"
Yeah. Huh?
And
That's
it was so
amazing.
stupid. I was so stupid. I did not listen to his advice until 40 years later. I am a slow learner, man. I'm a slow
I,
learner because
I'm a quick study, but a slow learner. I say that all the time.
look at, India's top coach is Ramesh. Okay, GM Ramesh.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all he does with his students. He does blindfold. He makes them solve blindfold. The stronger students, I make them do that, where they I just take them into the study deeper and deeper and deeper in their mind. But I guide them. If they're on the wrong track, I give them hints, and I try to give them all the data I can so they can solve. There's nothing more beneficial than solving a study with your coach. Okay, that's number one. Number
Yes.
two is just do it yourself. You try, you fail, look it up.
Yeah.
And it's the same with mates in two. But if people
Cyrus.
would just understand that,
Yeah.
they would get better.
I am going to ask you to come back because you're in the zone and I
Yeah,
have to cut you off because we're running out of
yeah.
time. But
I will be back.
thank you so much for coming on because I
For
just
having me.
I
It was
feel
great.
everything that you're saying is just, I relate to it so much. And I'm so proud of what you're doing for the chess community.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate it.
keep,
And you
keep,
too.
keep
You
up the
too.
good work. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I would like to have one Chess for Dummies billion seller like you. So.
Well, keep at it. You've only written 50 plus.
Yeah, one will sell a billion like yours. So. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you,
I
Jim.
took the easy, softer way out. Yes. Okay, thank you, Cyrus. I'm going to take you backstage. Say goodbye. Just a moment. Okay, so this has been Chess Files. The answers are out there with my wonderful guest today, Cyrus Lakdawala. And I want you to remember that if you're part of a community, You're never alone. So I'm going to say goodbye and see you next Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern.